Let's look at, and Julius had mentioned Satan as the king of addiction.
Yes.
Let's read a scripture where it describes Satan's desires to be like God and his ultimate fall.
And Rick, that's found in Isaiah chapter 14, verses 13 and 14. You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven.
That was the lust of the eye. See, because he saw what he wanted.
I will raise my throne above the stars of God.
Now see, that was, Satan wasn't flesh, but it was the lust of the being, of I will raise my throne above the stars of God. Me. It's me that's important here.
I will sit enthroned on the mount of assembly on the utmost heights of the sacred mountain. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High.
And there's the pride of life. And those three elements were in the sin of Satan that took himself out of the order in which he was created and said, no, I don't want to be here. I want to be above the very nature and being of God himself. That's not a good thing. And as a result, sin entered because he transferred that desire in that temptation, and then Adam made a choice, and here we are in a sinful world. Interesting thing, though, in the original sin, where Eve is tempted, those three elements exist as well. Let's just run through those real quickly here.
And when the woman, this is Genesis 3, 1 through 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat.
When she saw the tree that it was good for food, there's the lust of the flesh. It was good to eat. That it was pleasant to the eyes, the lust of the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, the pride of life. All three of those three things existed, and that caused the sin to enter in. And this is where we start in trying to define how addiction, being overboard, can adversely affect us.
Is it a choice, or are you addicted? Stay with us.
Any negative addiction is born of sin and therefore has its roots in these three elements of sin. To fight negative addictive behavior, we have to replace it with another behavior. See, nature abhors a vacuum. If you're going to take a negative behavior out, you have to put something in its place. And there's a scripture that really lays out this principle very, very, very clearly.
And Rick, we're going to read from Matthew chapter 12, verses 43 through 45. When the unclean spirit has gone out of a person, it wanders through waterless regions looking for a resting place, but it finds none. Then it says, I will return to my house from which I came. When it comes, it finds it empty, swept, and put in order. Then it goes and brings along 7 other spirits more evil than itself, and they enter and live there. And the last state of that person is worse than the first. So will it be also with this evil generation.
And Jonathan, that's a very important scriptural principle. It's talking about demon possession back in the times of the New Testament, and saying an unclean spirit is cast away or forced to leave that which it possesses. What generally happens in the mind of someone when you're in that circumstance or any other where you get rid of a bad habit is we clean it all up. New Year's resolutions. You decide to not do this or not do that. And you ever notice that most resolutions are to not do this and to not do that? Okay? So when our resolution is to not do this or that, we clean up our act and we sweep it and we scrub it and we vacuum it out and we deodorize it.
Everything's in order.
Everything's in order. But unless we replace what we're not doing with something else that requires our time and attention and our passion, you know what's going to happen?
It's going to hit us harder than it did before.
Right. It's going to come back because we have not replaced that which was evil, that which was not good for us. So that's a critical principle, this replacement factor that says you have to put something in the place of the bad behavior. Jonathan, just before we get into this other scriptural example of addictive behavior, and we've got a good one here, let's just talk practically for a minute about our own situations. We keep talking about it during the break, and we don't bring it up on the air. But let's be brave.
You're not talking about chocolate, are you?
Now see, chocolate. I could see myself being addicted to chocolate. I love chocolate. Dark chocolate.
So do I. I'm a dark chocolate guy.
I mean,
and the doctors tell you it's good for your heart. So there's
you keep telling me that. You're not helping me here, brother. You're not helping me with that. But it's interesting because that's something that I am drawn to. It's one of those things that you have to keep in moderation. And I could easily see myself, wanting to always have a piece of chocolate in my hand. Because I could. I just love chocolate. I don't know what it is. I just love it. And so it's one of those areas of life that personally I just have to be aware of and say, okay, in going through those questions, is it good for me? Has it cost me too much and all of that? And at this point, fortunately, I'm in a situation where I know I love it, and I know I could probably love it more than I should, but we haven't gone to that level. But I could. And you got to be careful. You just got to be careful.
You do.
And I think that's an important principle. And from another standpoint, some could say, well, Rick, and, with the three of us here, we've been doing this Christian-based, Bible-based radio program for all these years, and you say, well, you're addicted to the Bible. Well, I suppose, you could say that. I don't see that as a negative thing. I see that as a very positive thing. Studying the Scriptures and learning the will of God, that's a driving force. It's an overwhelming force in my life. And I choose to be subject to that. I guess the key question when you look at that is, okay, if you choose to be subject to an overwhelming force, you could be getting into the area of negative addiction, but the key thing that you have to ask yourself is, what is the effect on yourself, and what is the effect on those around you? And there were many comments and calls earlier to this end. What's the effect? And if the effect on yourself is positive and the effect on those around you is positive, then you're probably in a good environment. But anyway, just a couple of personal points to add to the program. Folks, if you have a thought.
Well, Rick, we're on our last question. What can we do to avoid or overcome addictive behavior?
And this next scripture is going to be an example of addictive behavior in the Scriptures and the replacement principle that we were talking about gone bad.
Rick, let's read 1 Kings 11, 1 through 9. Now King Solomon loved many foreign women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which Jehovah said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go among them, neither shall they come among you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon craved unto these in love, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods. And his heart was not perfect with Jehovah his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and after Milcom, the admonition of the Ammonites, and Solomon did that which was evil in the sight of Jehovah, and went not fully after Jehovah, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, the admonition of Moab, in the mount that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the admonition of the children of Ammon. And so did he for all his foreign wives, who burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And Jehovah was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned away from Jehovah, the God of Israel, who had appeared unto him twice.
So the story of King Solomon. Now, Solomon was considered to be the wisest man in all the earth.
That's right.
So you got to ask yourself the question, how does the wisest man in all the earth end up such an abomination? The answer is a little bit at a time. You could say, 10 wives at a time.
So total he had 1,000 women in his life.
That's pathetic. It's ridiculous. It's complete. It's the replacement principle gone bad. Because what ended up happening is he replaced his godliness with physical desire.
An addiction.
And what happened is he was in a position to be able to do this thing. Because not only was he king of Israel, but he was enormously wealthy. And Israel was in a state of peace, and things were good, and things were nice and easy. And it's kind of like his father, King David. Remember when he was sitting in his palace, his men were out to war where he should have been?
Right.
And he sees Bathsheba
Yes.
and messes up there. Well, Solomon lived a life of military ease, wasn't engaged as he ought to have been. Now, he built the temple, he did a lot of wonderful things and was wise, but the enormous wealth and power got to his ego, and he ended up getting involved again. Maybe 10 wives at a time. If you got 1,000, you really got to step up the numbers. It's just amazing to me. The thing is, though, what happened is he ended up being an idol worshiper. He built idols to the god of Molech.
Oh, That's
about as low as you go.
That is. They offered infants to Moloch and burnt babies to that god. Oh,
and
it was disgusting.